All right, viewers, it's a big breaking news coming in at the top of the hour. This is absolutely looks like there's no end to Trump's crude claims. Now, this time it's US President Donald Trump who says India will cut Russian oil imports. One may think that it's a climb down, but not really. In the next breath, he says India's going to cut Russian oil import by 40% at the end of this year. Again, we must underline and reiterate that there is no confirmation whatsoever over these claims when it comes to the Indian government side. So what is Trump basing his claims on? As always, no one really knows. Only POTUS knows what POTUS is saying and why he's saying so. Now, Trump goes on basically to say, and I quote, India, as you know, has told me that they are going to stop. And he goes on to say that it's a progress. You can't just stop buying from Russia. Listen in, first of all, to what Donald Trump had to say. And then my colleague Srinjoy will join us. He'll give us a broader perspective into that statement.
Well, I think I'll be talking to him about it. I think it's a little bit of a different talk. India, as you know, has told me they are stop. You know, it's a process. You can't just stop it. But by the end of the year, they'll be down to almost nothing. That's a big thing. That was almost 40% of the oil. India, they've been great. Spoke to Prime Minister Modi yesterday. They've been absolutely great. China's a little bit different. You know, they're a little bit different relationship they have with Russia. It was never good, but because of Biden and Obama, they got forced together. They should never have been forced together, but they're a little bit forced. But they're by nature, they're not. They can't be friendly. They can't be friendly. By nature, I hope they are friendly, frankly, but they can't be. You should not have forced Russia and China together. And Biden did that, and Obama did that. They forced them together because of energy, because of oil, and so they are closer than they would normally be. I think I'll probably be talking about it. What I'll really be talking to him about is how do we end the war with Russia and Ukraine, whether it's through oil or energy or anything else. And I think he's going to be very receptive. He would now like to. I'm not sure that he did at the beginning. He would now like to see that war end.
All right, Srinjoy continues to be live with us. Srinjoy, Trump talking about ending the Russia-Ukraine war, once again highlighting how oil purchases can be used as a leverage. This time around, as we were discussing earlier, Trump has made another big claim saying that India is going to cut down its Russian oil imports by 40% by the end of this year. But is there any confirmation, any word on these claims whatsoever by the Indian government side yet?
President Trump has talked about this several times. What is more important is that he has sanctioned 2 Russian firms today, and that he believes can put pressure on the Russians, on the Russian economy, and help to end the war. Whether that will happen or not, we don't know for sure, but at least these sanctions are at least on the ground. Secondly, he is meeting Xi Jinping very shortly, and that meeting, he believes, can also take Russia and Ukraine further towards peace. Again, whether that will happen or not is hard to say, but these are hopes. These are hopes that he has. These are hopes that the President of the United States has. He hopes the war will end, and he hopes that the sanctions will help to end the war, and also the meeting with Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, will also help. We'll have to see how that works out. But at this point, this is just hope. We shall see how these meetings go with Xi Jinping and other leaders, and how the sanctions impact on the Russian economy.
Well, absolutely. Srinjoy, do stay with us. Once again, viewers, we listened to what Donald Trump had to say. As we were saying, once again, he's making certain claims, claiming that India is going to cut down its Russian oil imports considerably. Listen to what Donald Trump had to say, viewers.
Well, I think I'll be talking to him about it. I think it's a little bit of a different talk. India, as you know, has told me they are stop. You know, it's a process. You can't just stop it. But by the end of the year, they'll be down to almost nothing. That's a big thing. That was almost 40% of the oil. India, they've been great. Spoke to Prime Minister Modi yesterday. They've been absolutely great. China's a little bit different. You know, they're a little bit different relationship they have with Russia. It was never good, but because of Biden and Obama, they got forced together. They should never have been forced together, but they're a little bit forced. But they're by nature, they can't be friendly. They can't be friendly. By nature, I hope they are friendly, frankly, but they can't be. You should not have forced Russia and China together. And Biden did that, and Obama did that. They forced them together because of energy, because of oil. And so they are closer than they would normally be. I think I'll probably be talking about it. What I'll really be talking to him about is how do we end the war with Russia and Ukraine, whether it's through oil or energy or anything else. And I think he's going to be very receptive. He would now like to, I'm not sure that he did at the beginning, he would now like to see that war end.
All right, so viewers, that's exactly what Donald Trump said. And in the backdrop of all of this, remember, obviously he's saying that he's going to be using oil as a leverage. Once again, he's saying that India is going to cut down the oil imports considerably, perhaps to 40% from what we are buying at the moment to now. But in the backdrop of all of this, Trump also says he's not going to meet Putin. Meanwhile, the US is also continuing to rain fire. It's Russia which is continuing to rain fire on Ukraine, and the US is imposing major sanctions on Russian oil firms. So it's 2 Russian oil firms which have been sanctioned by the US after concluding. And as the US claims that Putin is not being honest when it comes to Ukraine talks. We also learned that these sanctions have been imposed for funding the wars. That is the claim by the US. Now, US basically says that these Russian companies, the oil companies, are indirectly funding Kremlin's war machine. Remember, just yesterday, Trump had cancelled a planned meeting with Putin amidst the ongoing US-Russia tensions over the Ukraine war. Listen in first of all to this latest statement. But before that, let's go across to Srinjoy. He continues to be with us. Srinjoy, Donald Trump this time around has said that sanctions will continue till Russia agrees to ceasefire. This is extremely significant what has happened. The fact that they have sanctioned or imposed major sanctions on 2 oil companies of Russia. What's Trump's end goal by all of this?
He wants the war to end. That's as simple as that. And he believes that these sanctions will hurt the Russians enough. We don't know whether they will end the war, even if the sanctions hurt. Because at this point, let's not forget the war has been continuing for over 3 years. And if you take Russian and Ukrainian casualties, dead and wounded together, it adds up to over 1 million casualties.
Yep.
Now, 1 million casualties is a huge number. Let's not forget. Let's also not forget civilian casualties, damage to cities, and so on. So this is a huge loss for
and yes,
everybody.
Obviously, the number which is piling up, as you were saying, the number of dead and injured, US also is trying to put pressure on Russia, using it as a pressure tactic. Pathikrit Payne also has joined us on the phone line. Morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on Times Now. What will you say, sir? One, about Donald Trump's claims once again. Again, every day he makes a different claim. Sans any proof, there's no backing or any sort of word which has come from the Indian government side. But Donald Trump says that India is going to cut Russian oil imports by 40% or to 40% rather by the end of this year. Meanwhile, US has also imposed sanctions on 2 Russian oil companies. What do you think, Trump's end game is when he makes these big statements and obviously with these sanctions?
Well, if Trump wants to end the Ukraine-Russia war, then in that case, he has to understand the concerns of Russia as well. Merely imposing sanctions is not going to weaken Russia because there are several thousand sanctions that are already imposed on Russia. Secondly, on the issue of oil, we have heard these statements from Trump for a long time. We have not heard anything from government of India as of today's statement, but they have clearly rejected the claims of Trump. Trump made similar statements on Indo-Russian war, in India-Pakistan, war during the Operation Sindoor. So we have to take whatever Trump says with a pinch of salt. Thirdly, I don't think Trump is doing these things for the sake of humanity. That is absolutely not the case. A lot of people died in Gaza as well, and in the Ukraine-Russia war also, United States has been one of the biggest supplier of weapon systems. So the issue is this: the oil price is going below $60 a barrel. That is challenging from American shale oil. So they want to jack up the price of oil by saying that India is going to stop taking Russian oil. But I don't think, because we make the payment in the rupee-ruble mechanism. So even if there are sanctions, procurement of oil may not be impacted, but the refineries might find a little challenging because they have to, operate in a global environment.
And obviously, and that's the latest move by Russia. In fact, the world leaders, be it UK and others, they seem to be backing it. US has also backed, UK has backed US sanctions on Russia. Keir Starmer basically has hailed Trump's decision. Earlier, UK, they say, had sanctioned Russian oil companies. They say US will be joining with substantial sanctions. So that's another breaking piece, news which is coming in. The UK seems to be backing the US. It's not just, the UK, many other European countries. This is on expected lines that you have these leaders coming in from the UK and other European nations as well. Very similar reactions which are coming in. Listen to the reactions coming in, what Trump had to say as well.
Today is a very big day in terms of what we're doing. Look, these are tremendous sanctions. These are very big. Those are against their two big oil companies, and we hope that they won't be on for long. We hope that the war will be settled. We just answered having to do with the various forms of missiles and everything else that we're looking at, but we don't think that's going to be necessary. We would like to see them just take the line that has been formed over quite a long period of time and go and let's, go home. Last week they had almost 8,000 soldiers killed. Many Russians were killed last week. Many Ukrainians were killed last week. We think it's ridiculous and would like to have it end.
So that's the latest coming in, and obviously we have Keir Starmer's statement as well. It's not just Keir Starmer. There are many other European leaders, viewers, who are making similar statements. We heard what Donald Trump had to say. Let's also move on to another big breaking news coming in, viewers. This is all related, as we were telling you. Amidst the Ukraine war, that's the next breaking news which is coming in. There's another big claim by the US president. We have all these claims which come by the US President Donald Trump, and this time he's claimed that Russian President Vladimir Putin brought up the issue of nuclear de-escalation also during the recent phone call which they had. Trump also claimed that US has the most nuclear weapons, and he went on to say that's followed by Russia and China. Listen in.
Maybe even nuclear. President Putin in his call mentioned to me about nuclear, where we do a de-escalation, and I'm fine with that. I think it's good. I think it's a very appropriate thing. We have the most nuclear weapons. Russia's second. China is actually third by a long way, but they'll be even within 4 or 5 years. Too many. And we are talking about de-escalation. That's already being talked about. And I think we'll probably add China into the mix. Well, I think that in terms of honesty, the only thing I can say is every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere. They just don't go anywhere. So in that sense, but no, look, he's fighting a war. He's in a war. That's two very competent sides, and that's the way war is. You never know with war, but I would say that it's time to make a deal. A lot of people are dying. They're not Americans, but they're people. They're souls, and they're dying by the thousands, worst since World War II, and we really should stop it.
Srinjoy continues to be live with us. Srinjoy, Trump not only says that, Russia is going to, or Putin, according to him at least, has spoken of nuclear de-escalation. He's also confirmed no meeting with Putin. What happens next? Take us through, the fast-paced developments, one in the last 24 to 48 hours, and what can we expect next?
Trump and Putin were supposed to have met in Budapest. But when two leaders of this stature meet, when an American president meets the Russian president, you want a takeaway, especially since they've already met in Alaska. Now, at this point, it's very clear that nothing is coming. There is no ceasefire. The war is not ending. The terms for ending the war are very different. So at this point, it's very difficult to imagine a meeting, a successful meeting, besides this issue of tomahawks that the Americans are contemplating giving to Ukraine via the Europeans. Now, that is going to be an escalatory thing. This will definitely help the Ukrainians because this is a missile which has a range of about 2,000 kilometers. Now that means that Ukraine will have the ability to strike targets within Russia, deep inside Russia. Now, this is going to be an important point. Now, is Trump going to do it? Is he not going to do it? Because there's been considerable discussion about this. Now, in the middle of all this, are you going to meet Putin in Budapest? Probably not. And that's why this meeting is not taking place at this point. He is meeting Xi Jinping. And those are different issues. There are issues that relate to economic issues, trade issues, balance of trade issues. All of those issues will come up. Yes, certainly Ukraine will come up. But as far as the meeting between Xi Jinping and Trump is concerned, there will be Ukraine, but trade and the economy will certainly be there and will play a very major role in the discussions.
Well, absolutely, and that's what we were also discussing, that Trump has now confirmed that there is no meeting with Putin. He's also said that the meeting with Putin has been cancelled, according to him, and he also said that he didn't feel right to talk to Putin at the moment, saying that, leaving it ambiguous, saying that we'll do so in the future. All right, viewers, now we'll talk about